Good morning to you, and a very, very warm welcome to Penn Vicarage, and happy Friday to you. Hoping this is finding you well and cheerful as always. I don't know what you've got planned for today, but I hope it's good and I hope you enjoy it. Just to remind you, over the weekend, as always, we have some services for you to enjoy. We have a meditation at 5:30 Saturday evening. We've got a service 10 o'clock Sunday morning, and then Evensong Sunday evening at 5:30. And also St Anne's have a service at 11:45 for you to enjoy. And by the way, we're trying something new this weekend. We're experimenting with a virtual collection plate. So watch out for that, and you'll see that for that authentic church experience. And we'll put it out after the services each day. So look out for that over the weekend. But mostly enjoy the presence of God and enjoy the services this weekend. They're there for you to enjoy. Now, after the excitement of the last couple of days and the joy of being allowed out on the golf course, today, if I'm honest with you, I'm a bit sad. I'm sad because we've had to cancel our choir tour for this year, so it's a shame. And by the way, those of you who booked with the hotel with us, Anne Edwards will be in touch and you'll get your money back and so on, so we'll be in touch about that. I'm sad because actually we have a great time on choir tour every year. It's a great experience and everyone really enjoys it. And I'm sad we can't go, so that's that. But whilst I say I'm sad, actually the more I think about it, I'm not downhearted. I'm not downhearted for three reasons. Firstly, because the Minster have been lovely. They know they've cancelled it. It's no one's fault. And because we were booked in, they're going to prioritise getting us a tour for the future. So we will go to York. And maybe if people join the choir now, you might want to join us at York as well. So we will go there, and we can still have that to look forward to. Secondly, because I've got arranged a meeting with our wonderful musicians, Carly and Gary and Paul and Julia, and we'll put our heads together and put together some really exciting plans for the summer and things that we can do, and maybe some singing days or something, and maybe things that you like to get involved with as well. And while I'm on that, I'm excited because all four of them have been absolutely amazing through all this. We get the most superb music every week, and they're so nice about it too. They're all lovely, lovely people, and I'm really proud of them, and they're doing us proud. And so thank you to our musicians, and thank you also to our choir as well, and all in the band and everybody else who's taken part. You've all been amazing. Keep up the good work. And I'm looking forward to our meeting, putting our heads together about some exciting things that we can do over the summer, and maybe more people can get involved. So first thing, I'm not downhearted because we will go to York. Secondly, because we'll put some plans together, and I'm sure we'll put some good and exciting for you. But the third reason I'm not downhearted is because of our reading for this morning. Our reading for this morning, I'll get around to the Bible sometime, it's Romans chapter 8, and I'm starting to read at verse 28. That's Romans 8, 28. In fact, I'm just going to read you the one verse, Romans 8, 28, which says, "We know that all things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose." And in fact, it's such a lovely verse, and because it's quite short, I'm going to read it for you again. Romans 8, 28. You can remember that, Romans 8, 28. "We know that all things work together for good for those that love God, who are called according to his purpose." And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now, as we heard a couple of days ago, Paul didn't start off as Paul, he started off as Saul. And Saul was a guy who hated the new Christian church. Hated it so much, he persecuted it, and he was so keen to persecute it, he went to Damascus to try and some more people to persecute. And as we heard a couple of days ago, he goes to Damascus and he has en route, when he's not far away from the destination, the original Damascus Road experience. This person who hated the Christian movement encounters the living Jesus Christ. He goes, albeit blinded, to Damascus, and he's helped, as we heard a couple of days ago, by a great hero called Ananias. The book of Galatians implies that he then spends about 14 years getting his head around this, and he needs a complete change. It's about 14 years he takes getting his head around it, and then he starts out. And basically what Paul does, he changes his name to Paul, and he goes off on his journeys, and he basically tells people about Jesus Christ and sets up churches. And because in those days there were no such things as telephones, and there were no Zoom meetings in those days. The way he communicated with his churches, he'd write letters to them from time to time, responding to their issues and so on. And one letter he wrote was to the church at Rome. Hence, book of Paul, letter of Paul, to the Romans. That's why it's called the Romans. And it's one of various letters he wrote. And Romans is one of the longest, and it's very, very profound. And it's amazing, really. And that's why we're taken from this morning. Now, the thing to remember with Paul is he wasn't a person who was unfamiliar with difficulty. Ironically, he went from being a Christian-hating persecutor of the church to being a persecuted Christian himself. He wasn't somebody who was unfamiliar with difficulties. People certainly gave him a hard time as he went. And the Bible talks about some of the things he endured on his journey. But he did it because he was so passionate about Jesus. And Romans 8, he talks about some of the difficulties he endures. And despite going through all these difficulties, he still says, we know that all things work together for good for those that love God. And Paul was very good at this. He was very good at seeing, even though things are difficult, God is working his purpose out in this. And Paul was very good at seeing that even though things were difficult and problems would come, actually God always has a way of turning it around for good. A classic example of this, I mean, it's happened all through the Christian church, is one of the reasons the Christian church spread as much as it did in the early days is because it was persecuted. Because the church was persecuted, people dispersed. And because they dispersed, the church grew quicker and wider much more quickly. God making all things work together for good for those that love him. And that's the reason why I'm not downhearted today. Because, as the old hymn would put it, God is working his purpose out. God has a plan. And God has a plan for our lives. And for that reason, I'm not downhearted about our trip this year. Because even though we might be a bit disappointed, we are disappointed, of course we are, we're looking forward to it. Actually, all things work together for good for those that love God. And I am sure that in this situation, as somebody once said, God has got it. God knows what he's doing. God has a plan. And God will make all things, including a postponed choir tour, work for good for those that love him. It's a great verse. Romans 8:28. All things work together for good for those that love God. May God bless you. Have a lovely day. Enjoy the services over the weekend and watch out for that virtual